Welcome to another episode of the Positive Change Podcast. I'm Dr. Richard Harmer, your host for this podcast. And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the power of the pause. Now, why this topic at this time of year? Well, as we lead into the traditional festive season, the holiday season, and New Year, we can often find ourselves ramping up and amping up our effort, trying to get everything ticked off our to-do list before we get to our holiday. And also, we have this notion of this New Year's resolution, starting to think about how do I make next year better than this year? And that can lead to its own special kind of stress and overwhelm. So in this episode, we're talking about pausing, the antidote to overwhelmed, and the guide of giving yourself the gift of the pause at this time of year. So if this is a topic that's of interest to you, then stay tuned for more of this episode. Hi, I'm Dr. Richard Harmer, and you're about to discover new ways to go from overwhelm to thriving in your business and in your life by following your passions, pursuing your unique life purpose, and stepping fully into your infinite potential. You deserve to live your best life, a life filled with all of the clarity, courage, and commitment you need to be happy and to make a positive impact on the world. So get ready, because this podcast challenges society's expectations for what it means to be successful in life and in business, and invites you to grow beyond outdated assumptions for defining who you are. Welcome to the Positive Change Podcast. So welcome to another episode of the Positive Change Podcast, and this topic for this episode is the power of pausing. So let me set the scene. I spend a lot of my time in my coaching practice as well as my facilitation and training work, plus in my online students, talking with overwhelmed entrepreneurs who are finding themselves stuck and in a rut, unable to get out and getting to the edge of burnout. And this is a very common experience for many entrepreneurs who are overwhelmed at this time of year as we build into the end of the calendar year and the traditional holiday season and the New Year's resolution. Wanting to have everything done, everything on the to-do list ticked off, checked off, completed, and off your plate in order to be able to start the holidays without thinking you need to take your work with you. Now, the very notion of taking your work with you on a holiday is the ultimate signal of being overwhelmed as an entrepreneur. Not thinking you can turn the laptop off, stop answering emails, and not having everything in train ready to have that well-deserved break. Now, some of the things that I've noticed people I'm working with doing right now is burning the candle at both ends. Going to bed late and then getting up early and just doing it all again. Grind it out time. Back-to-back meetings, back-to-back deliverables, having too many projects, all with a deadline of now. Eating on the fly, not looking after yourself, diet. You know, this obsession that we have in the entrepreneurship world of obsession with hustle. Hustle, hustle, hustle. Running ourselves to a standstill. But there are consequences to continuing to overload and load ourselves up, getting more and more done in order to try and feel like we've accomplished something for the year. Now, the very notion of thinking we need to get to the end of the year to realize or to think about whether we've done enough or we've been successful, when we need to be making micro accomplishments throughout the year to know that we're making positive momentum, is a completely different podcast. But having to say that the consequences of feeling overwhelmed, particularly at this time of year after a pretty full-on 2021 for many people, is this inability to think clearly and to focus. If our minds and our thoughts and feelings are completely churning and overwhelmed with the next thing we need to do on our to-do list, next, then we're not going to be able to think clearly about the task at hand. We're certainly not going to be able to make effective decisions, and in a worst case scenario, we probably won't be able to make decisions at all. We'll be so overwhelmed with the sheer amount of work to be done, we'll be running ourselves to the point of procrastination. Now, that's not all. The thinking is the first thing that gets compromised. But in my experience working with many overwhelmed entrepreneurs, particularly at this time of year, and I've experienced this myself in my own past, is having no time for our most important relationships. No time for family and friends. Look, I remember myself a few years ago in this time of year trying to get things off my to-do list and noticed that with my partner and my kids, I'm going, yes, I really want to get out and have that holiday time with you. Trying to get that last week of Christmas and do all the Christmassy type things, like go and get the Santa photo and that going to shopping with family and friends, going to Christmas parties and finding myself always thinking that I needed that activity to end so I could get back to the next thing on the to-do list. Compromising our most important relationships. But that's not all when we start to get overwhelmed and start to think that our to-do list, that next important project, that next important deliverable, that thing that just has to be done before the end of the annual year, that's not the only thing that gets compromised. Poor health, poor fitness, resulting us having even less energy to spend on those all-important activities that we feel compelled to do at this time of year. Ultimately, what's actually occurring for the overwhelmed entrepreneur is they're working against their natural flow. Now, your natural flow, regardless of the industry or the client or the market you find yourself in, if you're feeling overwhelmed as an entrepreneur, you are working against your natural flow. And what is your natural flow? A sense of effortless ease, of peace, and a sense of groundedness, regardless of the situations and the circumstances you might find yourself in. An ultimate alignment with your life's flow. That sense of just the right balance between the challenge at hand and your ability, confidence, and competence to realize that challenge. That sense of making positive progress towards those things that matter to you. Working hard for sure, but not having life be hard work for you. The key message here is for the overwhelmed entrepreneur. If you find yourself at this time of year as you lead in to the traditional festive season and the new year, the key message is that you always have within your power the choice to pause. Now, the choice to pause is not about stopping or giving up. It's not about relinquishing control of situations. It's about becoming more choiceful, choosing the most impactful thing to do right now of the many things you could be doing in order to have a greater impact for yourself and for others. So the thriving change maker, by contrast, that person who may have been overwhelmed as an entrepreneur or a business owner at some point, but has really decided to align their work to liberating more potential for themselves, others, and the world at large. They really take the time consistently, and particularly at this time of year, to reconnect and stay connected with their unconditionally positive core. Now, I've talked about your positive core in previous episodes and in my online training program, but your positive core is the unconditional positive elements, aspects, character traits of you. Those things that does not matter what situation you find yourself in, you cannot not do them. They're the fundamental essence of who you are. How you think, what you do, how you're in relationship with other people, what attributes, character strengths, capabilities, capacities, and behaviors you demonstrate that continue to reinforce positive flow in your life. Your unconditional positive core. Those thriving change makers make sure that regardless of what's happening in their world around them, they stay connected with the essence of what makes them them, what makes you you. And they apply that to their purpose, their life's work, their enduring North Star. You see, even though for many of us we're getting to the end of a calendar year, it's a traditional time of having a holiday for many people around the world. It's not the be-all and end-all. Now, certainly, I'm advocating that you have continual and regular breaks throughout the year to rejuvenate and rest. But our enduring purpose always acts as our North Star, independent of whether we're busy at any time of the year or not. It's the very reason we do what we do. As change makers wanting to make the world better for ourselves and other people, it is our North Star, our purpose that keeps us heading in a direction where we feel like we're making a positive difference. So the thriving entrepreneur stays connected with their unconditional positive core, stays focused on their North Star, their purpose, and continuously stays connected with and present to the flow of the moment. Again, I've talked about this in previous podcasts, but the Western way of thinking about life is that there is a way, and I will find it, and I will take action, and I'll work towards it. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with that, but it's only half of the picture. A more Eastern Buddhist philosophy, for example, of one of many alternative traditions, is that life has a natural flow, a Tao, a peace within the Christian context, if we're that more inclined. A natural flow, and our role in life is to connect with it. It's not to force life to our will. It's to align ourselves with our own natural flow and life's natural flow. So how do we do this? How do we have the power of the pause? Recently, I was reading Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. And he talks about the two systems of thinking. System number one, that fast thinking system, the fast, instinctive, emotional, and intuitive system. And system number two, the thinking slow system, slower, it's more deliberate, considered, logical, and integrated. Now, obviously the key here is both, but at this point in time in the year, oftentimes we can default to quick thinking, this more reactionary, emotive, intuitive sense of thinking. Now, in my program, the Positive Change 3X Effects, I talk a lot about the power of intuition, the importance of listening to our higher mind and our creative force. But this needs to be coupled with our sense of groundedness, deliberate, logical thinking about what is the most useful action, thought, feeling to take right now. If we rely our decisions solely on emotion and we're stressed, what do you think happens to our decisions? They become reactionary. Our intuition becomes reactionary to the emotional state and conditions we find ourselves in. And it's in those times we really do need to slow down, to become more discerning. What is mine to do right now that aligns with my essential nature, my unconditionally positive core, the flow of the moment, and my purpose? To think fast and to think slow. And this is where the power of the pause really comes into its own. This power to connect with each moment's potential, which is also your potential in each moment. In each and every moment, every single thing we need in order to thrive is ever present within us and around us. What we need to do is be able to slow down, to take that time to think slow so that we can think fast, to take that gift of the pause and identify what else is in this moment that can sustain us in our most meaningful contribution for the world. Now, there are 4 steps, there are 4 considerations here that I just want to share really briefly. The first is, once we slow down and in staying connected or connecting in with each moment's potential, it's all about listening, a deep listening, getting below the surface level chatter of our own mind. That next thought, the next thought, the next thought, the next thought, the next thought, like the rapids of a river. And understanding that below those rapids, there is an ever-present flow. You know, a river's, and using that metaphor of the river, it might be rapids at times, but underneath that river is still flowing towards its destination. If we get below the surface level chatter of our thoughts and connect with that deeper sense, the deeper clarity of our own thinking, connect with our thoughts, our heart, and our spirit, then we open up and access a deeper level of knowing, beyond knowing about what to do next. But it's not just listening to our own deeper knowing. It's also listening to others. You know, one of the things that's really important that a thriving change maker does is they understand that some of their individual challenges are best solved through and with community. The communities, the friendship groups, the family they're part of. Staying connected in with that deeper support network of their own brilliance. So it's not just listening. So step 1 is listening, but it's not just listening deeply to yourself. It's slowing down and taking that time to listen deeply to the people around you, listening for their wisdom as well as your own. Considering and discerning the right paths to take and not all paths. The second step is in staying connected with the moment's potential, which, as I've already shared, is your own potential too, is observing what is actually happening. Now, what can sometimes happen, particularly when we become overwhelmed, is we can start to overlay, or we imagine what is happening, or what we desire to happen, or the fear we don't want to happen. We overlay those imaginings, those distortions on the present moment, and we fail to make connection with what is actually occurring. What is observably present in each and every moment. All of the potential we need to thrive is ever present to us, but we can fail to notice it because it may not come in the form or the approach that we expect. Just yesterday, I walked out the front door and I took my dog Molly for a walk down the beach. And I haven't been to the beach for a few days. And in that moment, it was blowing an absolute gale down there at about 6 a.m. But in that moment, I connected with the force of the ocean, that relentless waves rolling forward, waves rolling to the beach and running up the shore. And it reminded me of the importance of simple patterns repeated. Not trying to do too much, not trying to do too many different things, fundamentally ensuring that at this point in time in my own unfolding, simple patterns repeated. There is a tranquility to those and a power to those. This sense of a rhythm, not necessarily repetition, because no wave is exactly the same, but a rhythm that allows for a deeper knowing to emerge. And I observe that in my immediate surroundings, and it connected with my own intuition about how best to address the next phase of my own change-making efforts. Step number 3, a really important one, once we've listened to our deeper knowing and observed what is actually occurring around us, not what we want to occur or we imagine to occur or we don't want to occur, but what's actually present, is allowing. This thing is, the more we reject the moment, the more we reject what is actually occurring, the more we reject our natural flow of our own thoughts and feelings and spirit, the more we reject these things, the more we get stuck and controlled by them. The very essence of freedom in life, in work, in whatever context we're talking to, is this sense of allowing, this sense of allowing the moment unfolding liberates us from the very moment itself. The more we fight against what is actually occurring, the more we get stuck and trapped by the thing that's occurring. The more we allow and accept life's unfolding, paradoxically, that's where the freedom is. The more we let go of control, the more control we have. And most importantly, that leads to step number 4 of the power of the pause, is responding. The more we listen to our deep intuition, observe what is ever present and actually occurring around us, and allow the moment to actually be, rather than trying to control or force or change what it is, the more we're able to respond from our highest self, our wisest self. So the question to ask ourselves when we're present to the moment and its potential is to ask the question, what would my highest self, the wisest me, do in this situation? What would my wisest self focus on? What would my wisest self say to let go of? And whatever that highest you, that wisest self says, that is the thing to respond to, because that self is going to be seeking integration and the generation of even more potential for yourself. Now, in my program, The Positive Change 3X Effect, I talk about a range of these strategies or approaches to reconnecting with our potential. But one of the ones I really like, and I use myself a lot, a very simple practice called the inner compass. Now, the inner compass is that felt sense of energy flowing through your body. Just imagine it like a channel from the tip of your forehead, your crown, through to your toes. That untainted energy that connects your body with your mind and your mind with your source, with your spirit. That ever-present, untainted energy, that natural flow within yourself. That's your inner compass. And we know the inner compass by how it feels when we are aligned with it or not aligned with it. When we're aligned with our inner compass, there's a felt sense of enlivening, of personal liberation in each moment. The sense of abundance, of boundless, timeless potentiality. And when we're off track, when we lose connection with our inner compass, it can start to feel like a contraction. Like the world gets smaller, our possibilities become less, our opportunities become constrained. That felt sense of enlivening versus contracting. And we know that we're able to stay on track in life when we have an ever-present sense of enlivening, of nourishment, of flow, of effortless ease. So I'd like to just take a moment here and invite you in to just a practice of pausing. Coming into contact with the present moment and all that you are and all of the potential that you are becoming. Noticing with your own sense of understanding, your own inner compass, that clear, untainted, ever-present, pure energy that effortlessly flows through the central channel of your physical and your energetic body. That sense of connection of your life's energy, your life force, with the life force of the moment. Take that time now, pause. Connect with your own life's energy and the life's energy of the moment, which with each breath in and each breath out, becoming closer and closer and closer to the potential and your potential in the present moment. Come into contact with the enriching, enlivening nature of each moment and the potentiality available to you within each moment. Notice how that feels. Notice that physical experience of peace and groundedness when you slow down for just a few moments. Notice that felt sense of alignment. Notice how that might feel a little bit different or a lot different to the everyday chatter, noise, activity, busyness of life. That sense of constraint. That's how we know with our inner compass when we're on track or off track. That felt sense of the physical and energetic change in our experience of ourselves in life. So, as you finish up this year, and if you find yourself with too much remaining on your to-do list, take the gift or give yourself the gift of the pause. Pause. Reclaim your power and allow your own inner compass to point the way back home to your essential nature, to the unconditional positive core of yourself, your essential nature, to your enduring and deeper purpose, your deeper why of your life, and the ever-present flow of the moment. Now, as we do get to the end of the year and the traditional festive season around the world, in many places around the world, I do wish you a happy holiday if that's what you're able to take right now, and a really safe and prosperous new year. And I want to offer a gift of my 31 days of abundant positivity. This is something I wrote a couple of years ago during just in the onset of the current pandemic. And I wrote a short blog every day for 30 days, inviting people to be purposeful with their positivity. And that set of blogs I've turned into an audio daily reflection. So if you're looking for something, a daily prompt to consider your own positivity and own potential during these holidays, a short 4 or 5 minute recording with the opportunity to reflect upon what it might mean for you, that's my gift to you, 31 days to abundant positivity. A daily reflection for 31 days, really inviting you to think about the potentiality and power of your own positivity and your own life's unfolding. My gift to you at this time of year when gifts are flowing. So if you want access to my 31 Days of Abundant Positivity program, simply click the link below in the show notes and it'll take you to register for this gift. Now, in collecting your email address, don't worry, we won't be spamming you. It's just giving you access to 31 days of abundant positivity. Now, if you already have access to this, I've offered this as a gift in previous years, then you can do it more than once. Just have another go at it. Take the time to give yourself the power and of the pause to reflect upon yourself each day for the next 31 days. Connect with your inner compass, your inner shining light, the brightness of you, and have a wonderful holiday season. And stay tuned for the next episode of the Positive Change Podcast. I'm Dr. Richard Harmer, your host. Be well. Hi, and thank you so much for checking out another episode of the Positive Change Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit subscribe using the button below. And make sure you also click the bell icon to get notified every time we release a new episode. If you're looking for the show notes for this episode, we have them in the link underneath, as well as our social media handles and some links to free training and other offers that we drop from time to time to help you go from overwhelmed to thriving in pursuing your best life. So go ahead and check out this episode's show notes if you're interested. And thank you so much for tuning into the Positive Change Podcast.